stash your worries at the Craftstache store. Let's craft and laugh till we can't anymore.
Hello there. Welcome to the Craftstache. Enjoy Laura's dance over there. If you're new here, I'm your host, Justina. This is my co-host, Laura. And we today wanted to kind of touch on beginners and what beginners are asking because, Christmas just came up. Everybody got a new machine. Hopefully, everybody got a new machine.
Yeah, that's what we all wanted.
Lots of people are excited about their new stuff. So we just wanted to field some of those kind of beginner-friendly questions. And I pulled these. We had asked on Facebook, we asked on Instagram, and then I kind of went through some of our recent tickets and our recent messages and just kind of pulled some questions that I know that we've seen commonly.
Look at you, prepared queen.
Of course. So this first one, and I think I'm just going to read this, and then Laura, I'll let you give some feedback, and then I'll add any if I think there's any missed. But Jessica P says, I just got my Cricut and I'm super excited to use it, but I'm overwhelmed with all the settings. What should I look out for?
Oh, man. Well, first of all, join the club. I feel like when I first got my Cricut, I looked at it and I was like, what is this robot? Because the first Cricut I ever used was the one with the cartridges, which I think we've talked about before, but many less buttons and many less settings. So relatable, first of all. I think... Gosh, there's so much I could say here. This is such a broad question. You're going to have to help me narrow down our response to this. But I think the first thing I would say to you is don't try to know everything about your Cricut right now. It's okay if you look at something and you don't know what a button does or what it means. I would honestly not worry about it. Instead, I would pick a few small projects that you can learn and do them sequentially. In doing that, you're going to learn so much about the features of your Cricut. And then once you digest that, you can just pick a new project that maybe is with a different material or it's a different technique. And if you just go about it that way, eventually you will learn all the settings on your Cricut. But I think if you try to just learn all the buttons and the settings without some project to practice it on, it's just going to be in one ear and out the other. And it's going to be like a fire hose to the face. So that would be my best advice for you. And shameless plug, we are doing a Cricut beginner series on YouTube right now that is exactly for this. So it starts off with terms that you want to know and understand to be able to use your Cricut. And then it goes into a Cricut design space overview, which I think is a really great place to start. And then we do a beginner adhesive vinyl project, a beginner heat transfer vinyl project, a beginner sticker project. And doing those all in order, you're going to learn so much about your Cricut, and you're going to also feel more confident to then try some other new projects that help you branch out.
I think my biggest takeaway would be don't start with too hard pressure because I ruined my very first mat on my very first try.
I did that too.
Start low, go high. If you ruin a little vinyl, it's a lot cheaper than if you ruin a whole mat.
Yeah.
Don't start with paper either. I feel like we all try that, the notebook paper. Oh, it'll cut it. It'll be fine. It's awful. It's not going to look good. And you're going to feel like your Cricut doesn't work. So it's just going to
be discouraging.
I would definitely start with a vinyl project and just make a decal, make something for a cup, something that's really easy, something that you're going to be able to pull on and take off. Because the biggest things you're going to learn are how to cut things on it and then how to apply those things to the material that you want to apply it to. So I would definitely start small and just work from there.
I love it. And also don't be afraid to make mistakes because you will. So if you're doing a project for the first time, buy 2 of whatever you need and just be prepared to fail and be okay with failing because that is how you learn so fast is by just being willing to just dive in and do it. And that's half the fun.
Yeah, definitely. I will never forget to mirror because I spent probably 6 hours on a project one day. I didn't mirror any of it. And it was an HTV project.
No.
So yeah, now I check every single time.
You're do I need to mirror or not? I've done that a few times with patterned vinyl where it's it doesn't follow the rules, and you'll be oh, it's adhesive vinyl. I don't need to mirror. And then you magically do, or vice versa. There's some weird vinyls out there that break the rules and those always get me. Or if it has, what gets me, what the biggest mistake that I still make all the time while we're talking about being willing to make mistakes is if a vinyl comes with a protective coating on it, I always forget to remove it. And then I'll be why isn't this weeding? What is going on? And I'll be dang it. It's It's got a protective film. Tech
Yeah,
Wrap, I'm looking at you.
I wish almost that that the actual film would just be like remove me, like have like a little stamp
Yeah,
across
put a
it.
stamp over it. Put a sticker over it.
We
It's so
got
frustrating.
I've ordered, I don't know, probably $100 in vinyl years ago. And because I ordered such a big order, the company had sent like a stack of like little samples, but they didn't tell you what anything was.
Oh, that is my least favorite. I've had that happen too.
It's like, is that HTV? What do I pull off? Do I pull this off? So I
Yep.
had to play with it. And by the time you play with it,
You've
you
used
get
it.
this much of it and you're not really learning anything. So I wish they would like, I don't know, staple something to it. Tell me the rules.
I agree. I've gotten a few shipments like that from companies, and it'll be like some sort of stencil vinyl. And I'm like, I have no clue how to use this. No clue. And I don't even know what it's called, so I can't look it up on your website.
Yep.
Ah,
I love that they're nice. I just wish that they were nice with a little bit of a guidance.
give me some direction, Love
Okay,
it.
so we have Mark T, and he has asked, I recently bought, this one's for you. I won't know the answer. I recently bought a sublimation printer and a heat press, but my first print didn't come out right. It looks faded and uneven. What am I doing wrong, and how do I get the colors to pop like they do online?
Okay. Well, there could be a few things that could be causing the problem. And I'll try to explain it thoroughly, because I feel like if you don't know anything about sublimation, this is going to sound like I'm speaking a foreign language. But first of all, make sure you calibrate your printer. So do a test print. On mine, I have a Sawgrass, and when you print it out, it's got like these little lines, and it has a little direction on the bottom that says like every line there needs to be no breaks in the line. And if there's breaks in the line, it means that it's like not printing correctly. So do that first until it passes the test print. That makes a massive difference, and that prevents you from having like lines down your print, which is like a really common error. And I have been known to just press it on with the lines on, because I'm like, I'm not doing this again. But being thorough about that will help. Also, when you first print it, it will be faded. So I don't know if he's talking about like it's faded after he presses, or just the print looks faded. But if it's just the print that looks faded, it does until you add heat, which is what pulls the color out. Because science lesson, sublimation is when something goes from like a solid to a gas without passing through the liquid state. Hello, chemistry. So that's all we're doing when we do sublimation, is we're taking like that solid that is like the ink thing, and we are adding heat, and it's making it a gas. So then it adheres to the fibers of whatever you're pressing it on. And then when it cools, it solids back up. So that's sublimation. But anyways, so it will look a little bit faded until you apply heat, which is what then like makes those particles turn to a gas, which is what makes them vibrant. That is a thing. So one thing that you can do though to make it more vibrant is assist in that process by doing like a preheat on your design. So what I do, you can actually see my heat press back here. I just slide my paper like right there, and then I turn my heat press on like 400, and I lower it to where it's just hovering above the paper, just barely. And I let the ink like cure like that for just like 30 seconds maybe. And then when you lift it back up, it kind of is like ready to press, and it can give you a more vibrant print. The third thing that could be happening is you might be using the wrong kind of substrate or the wrong kind of blank. So make sure your blank is got a high polyester count. People typically say a minimum of 60% polyester, but if it has a lot of cotton in it, it's going to make your print like a lot less vibrant. So yeah. I would say the more polyester, the better. And a very light color of shirt. So white, light gray, off-white, ivory, tan, those kinds of things. If you're using like a rich color, that will interact with the ink on your print. And if you are using something that has a high cotton count, that also interacts with it, because the polyester just reacts really well to that sublimation process. Or make sure you're using a blank that is treated for sublimation. That was a big, long answer. I hope that was helpful.
I learned a lot. I don't like science, so my brain.
I love science.
Okay, so Lauren S. says, I've seen people making shirts and mugs with their Cricut, but I'm not sure what materials I need to get started. Do I need special paper for the machine, or can I just use regular paper? I I just found this one kind of interesting because their immediate thought was, can I just print this and pop it on something? Or I guess they're doing a print and cut. So
Yeah.
what's your thoughts here, Laura?
I kind of wonder if she's talking about like infusible ink.
Maybe, yeah.
Oh man. This is another these questions. These are great questions. They're just so big. Like I could yap on these forever. Okay.
Lauren, if you are watching this, just tell us more in the comments and we will address it at a later show because we love to yap. So
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
I'll kind of give you like a brief, but then if you watch this and you want more info, let us know. It sounds like she might be talking about infusible ink, which would be like, because that is printed on paper and then it is adhered to like a shirt or a mug. Yeah, that's right. So that's kind of like Cricut's sublimation, essentially. What they're doing is they are using infusible ink, which is just their special sublimation ink that they've trademarked or whatever. So yeah, you do need a special kind of blank for that. Again, it needs to be high polyester count, a light color, or if it's a mug or a cup, it needs to be treated for sublimation. So you could just look up like even on Amazon, sublimation ready mug, sublimation ready shirt, if you're talking about infusible ink. But the fun thing about infusible ink is you do get to use just like regular old paper, which is cool. They also have the pens, which are neat because your Cricut can like draw whatever you want on regular old paper. Or I've used the infusible ink pens to have my kids like color on paper and then I just press it on, which is really cool. But if that's what you're talking about, you do need a sublimation ready blank. If that's not what you're talking about, then this question gets a lot more broad. So just give us more info in the comments.
You know, I watched your video where you did the one with your kids and they colored on the paper. And I guess my brain didn't wrap around the fact that if you were doing a mug, like you could let them color on paper and then press onto the mug and they didn't have to like scribble on the mug.
Yeah.
And I don't know why that, like, I watched you do it and I'm like, wait, no, that's not how I envisioned it. Like, I thought we were handing our kids mugs and being like, draw all over.
Which, I mean, you could do that, but then you can use Sharpie. You don't need invisible ink for that. But
yeah.
it is it's fun to do. I've done it a couple times since then. I need to make a new video on it. But what I love doing is using the black infusible ink pen and having it draw the outline of whatever I'm going to put on the mug. And then my kids just go ham with the colors and then press it on. And it's something, it still creates like a cool product that has like some structure to it, but they get to be involved. So that's nice. It's like elevated coloring.
I like that. There was a trend, I don't know, maybe a couple years ago where you'd do that on a shirt. You'd put your coloring book design on a shirt. You'd let your kid color all over it. And it could be like a birthday present kind of thing.
Yeah, it's fun. I really like it.
It's fun. And the kids appreciate it, I'm sure.
Oh, yes.
Okay, so James L. has said, I'm new to Cricut and I want to make decals, but I'm struggling with cutting intricate designs. How can I get cleaner cuts for smaller details without tearing the vinyl?
Yeah, same. So
do you want me to answer this one? Because this used to be my area of expertise.
Yeah, this is you. You go for it. I've answered plenty.
So there are like several points that you have to consider. A, is your blade going to be, is it a new blade? Is it an old blade? Have you used that blade on paper? I kind of always preach, just get a blade for vinyl, get a blade for paper. You don't have to use the Cricut ones. They sell like offhand ones. They're fairly inexpensive. Get you a blade for vinyl. Always use that blade for vinyl. Never use that blade for paper. If that blade's not sharp, it's going to rip, and you're going to know that because as it travels, you're going to get those like, little spots that are just not very straight.
Yeah.
So that's when you know that you need to change your blade. Obviously, your pressure settings are going to be a good point in that, and I would do a test at first with pretty much any type of vinyl. You don't have to do like every color of the vinyl you buy, but like if you're using Oracle, put a little strip down, just test some different pressures until it gets to the point that it's like cutting through, but you don't really even want it to press hard on that back. It can press to the back, but you just don't want it to like press through the back. And when it gets to that point, you've kind of got a setting that you want. And I always just wrote them down. Like I had a notebook somewhere where I could be like, Oracle, this, like this is what I want to keep it on. Beyond that, your vinyl is so important. And I think that's where we get lost because we're like, oh, I'll use Cricut brand vinyl. And then nothing's intricate and won't cut. Cricut has its place. You can cut bigger projects with it. it's inexpensive for some people considering like their region and what they have available. I'm a big Oracle girl. Is it StarCraft? That's the other
That's what
one.
I
It's
like.
really,
Yeah,
really nice.
StarCraft.
Yeah, like those really they feel thicker to me, but
Yeah,
also
which
good cut.
honestly makes them. I just said this in our beginner video we just filmed, but StarCraft and Oracle or Oracle, however you pronounce it,
Yeah.
because they're a little bit thicker, they're just a lot easier to weed for beginners because there's just like more to grip with your weeding hook.
Yeah, for real. Well, I'm one of those that I use an X-Acto knife. I know that scares a lot of people. I used to do videos of me doing it, and people would be like, "How do you not stab yourself?" And I'm like, "I'm just used to it."
I would
Also,
stab myself.
I feel like I'm a little thick-skinned. Like I could poke myself with that thing, and it's not going through anything. And then the last thing that I would look out for is the design. Um, if you're using a really, really crappy, like it's been traced 3 different times, it's the nodes are everywhere, kind of edges, it's not going to cut as well. That should really be the last thing that you look at, though. Like if you've went through that checklist, everything's working right, but then your design is kind of crap, then you kind of know where to look and maybe clean it up. There are different programs now that you can like smooth a trace. Or you could just kind of look it up because sometimes you'll get a file from somebody and it's like they're like the fourth person to have shared this file with so and so to so and so. If you go to somewhere like Design Bundles where the
Shameless plug.
artists are drawing them and then putting them on there, or at least they're like making them and then putting them on there from scratch, you're going to get a nicer file. But often what I find is I'll see like a shirt or, someone will be like, can you make this for me? If I look up that design, I can almost always find that exact design, like on Design Bundles somewhere, and I'm getting it from the original source where I'm going to get that really nice file and I'm not like trying to trace a secondary image.
Yeah, yes. You talked about blades. Have you ever tried the hack where you like stab your blade in aluminum foil to sharpen it up?
I haven't never needed to because I only use each one for like I have an HTV one, I have a vinyl one, and I have a paper one, and I've really only ever had to change them. I don't know. I've had Cricuts for 8 or 9 years now. I've only
And
had
you
to change
haven't
them
had
like
to.
a couple.
I guess if you're doing it that way, it does last a lot longer.
Yeah.
I've never done that. I use my fine point blade for like everything, which is why I have this issue all the time. And I know that I have this issue. Justy will watch me weed something and she'll be like, it shouldn't be doing that.
Well, no, you weed in a very interesting manner, and that's all I'm gonna say.
It's because it's because I like use my hand a lot, I think. And I don't know why I do that. That's just how I learned.
I think that I like the X-Acto knife method for that reason, though, because you can kind of cut a line down, and then pull that section. So you can work by sections and you can get a really clean weed that way. But
Yeah.
then I guess I've never really watched anybody else weed until I'd watched yours, and I'm like, this is giving me anxiety.
Maybe you're the weird one.
Too many things are touching each other.
Yeah, well, that one was a struggle because we were doing it on a live and I was trying to get it done. So I was trying to pull a lot all at once, which was a big time issue. But sometimes I do use scissors to trim it down to a smaller section and that will make it better. But I still weed a lot. I still use my hands a lot when I weed, which is probably problematic. But maybe do what I say, not what I do.
There you go. Great life advice. Okay, so Christy, I'm sorry. Why do some of my prints not stick behind my heat transfer tape? I think you've touched on this before.
Yeah, if the heat transfer tape is covering it, it ain't gonna stick because heat tape is exactly what it is. It is heat tape and it's meant to resist the heat so it doesn't melt into your design. So if you have something under it, it's not going to press. It's the same with sublimation, and I've made this mistake a million times, so you're not alone, Christy, where I'll tape something down on a mug and I'll forget that there's print like under where I've put the heat tape, and then that part just won't adhere. And that's just because the heat tape's doing its job. So you got to make sure your tape is not touching a part of your design. A good thing to do there would be like cut a little extra so you have room to put the tape down because, yeah, it'll do it. That's what it does.
I think as beginners, that is not something you think about. Like
No.
heat resistant tape in my brain would just be like tape for the heat. Like
Right.
Not that it blocks the heat, it just won't melt when I put heat on it.
Which, I mean, yes, that's true. but it also is really good at that. And so it won't let the heat get through to your design, and your design needs a good amount of heat to be able to adhere to whatever you're putting it on. So yeah.
Okay, so Anna F has a laser question. She says, I'm using my laser to engrave on acrylic, but I'm not getting a clean engrave. It says cut, but I think that was typo.
Yeah.
It seems like it's only partially. Oh, you know what? I think she means cut because it says it seems like it's only partially cutting through the product. Should I adjust the power, speed, or both?
This is you, Justy. Take it away.
Well, if you're cutting acrylic, I'm so sorry that your house smells like a nail salon.
I knew you were going to say that.
I can't. I love acrylic and I like working with it. But
it's my favorite thing to work with.
I would say that if you have the ability to change your settings, if you have a laser that has the ability to change your settings, because acrylic is it's so easy to catch acrylic on fire. It's the only thing I've ever had a flame with. I would start with going higher speed or lower speed, slow down your speed, and then go higher power. I don't know that I would start with higher power just in case. But those are the cuts that you have to watch. So always be standing right there. You should always be standing right there with everything. But I mean, if you're doing like an engrave on a piece of wood and it's going to take 6 hours, I understand people are getting up and going away. Don't do that with acrylic. It's dangerous.
Have I told you my shameful story of leaving my laser?
Already? Not the new one, right?
No, it was the new one. It was cutting wood, and I really I needed to go get groceries, but I didn't have groceries and I was starving. We have a Mexican restaurant a mile away. So I was like, I'm going to the Mexican restaurant. So I was with a friend of mine and I set up my tripod with my phone pointing into the laser and I FaceTimed myself from her phone. And so I was literally sitting at a Mexican restaurant eating, watching my laser on FaceTime with myself just in case it caught fire.
So what's the plan there? If it catches fire now,
the car,
the laser, your house, your phone, it's all gone.
Yeah. I mean, if it had started to catch fire, I would have been back at the house in 4 minutes. And I would have been like, we got this. But I'm not going to say that I would recommend that strategy. It was desperate.
Well, that is definitely not recommended. A lot of the bigger shops, because I'm in a lot of the Glowforge groups, like the laser groups, and a lot of the bigger shops will use a baby monitor. And it's just because they're going to have 4 running. So they'll run 4 and just sit there and have them all up there so they can kind of watch them. So, I mean, you got to do what you got to do. But at the same time, especially with acrylic,
it was not acrylic.
I would baby acrylic.
Acrylic will catch fire on you. It even looks scary when it's cutting correctly. If you watch it when it's cutting and it's not catching fire, you're like, that's a lot of flame. That's a lot of problem.
It has a trail. I don't know. It just acrylic really freaks me out. And also, did I mention that it stinks?
It smells like a nail salon. Which, I mean, some people like that, I guess, but it does not smell great. And I don't think you're really supposed to breathe it in. I think a lot of people wear a mask when they cut acrylic.
Yeah, we've had that discussion here about how safe we are and how good we are.
Yeah, I don't wear a mask when I cut acrylic, but I probably should.
Yes, you do. For legal reasons, you totally do. I'm just kidding.
I wear a mask every time. And by that, I mean I do this.
That is a mask. That counts.
Okay. Yes.
Okay, so Vanessa R says, please tell me all of your registration mark secrets. My Cricut never reads them.
Interesting. I'm trying to figure out why your Cricut's not reading them. I mean, I guess there's a lot of things that could be the issue. If you're doing stickers, which you probably are, if you are using a laminating sheet, which I'll just say this is most of the reason I feel like why that doesn't happen, is you used a laminating sheet and your laminating sheet is covering the registration mark, which it seems like it wouldn't be a big deal because it's see-through, but the glossiness of the laminating sheet will that camera that's looking at the registration mark, that light just bounces right back up into it and it can't see your registration mark. So if you're using any sort of shiny surface, including laminating sheets, make sure you cut it down to size so that it's inside the boundary of your registration mark or it won't read it. That is probably what's happening. trying to think if there would be any other reason why it wouldn't be reading beyond like just a Cricut error.
Do our cameras get dirty? I mean,
Yeah,
probably
you
go
could
and
wipe
clean
off the
something.
camera. Use like a I'm trying to think of what I've used in the past. I think I've used like a little, paper towel or something with like a little bit of glass cleaner on it to like wipe it off. And I don't know if this is recommended, but I think I've used a baby wipe before. I use a baby wipe on my rails.
My son would tell you only an alcohol wipe. Anything electronic, he goes through alcohol wipes like crazy, but
Yeah, that's probably true. That'd be
he would
best.
tell you that was the most important one to do. I don't know with it being a camera lens, but I do know on our laser, you absolutely cannot use anything but an alcohol wipe.
Yeah. I do that. I'm good to my laser. I'm good to my Cricut too, but it just feels a little more like it can take more,
They're sturdy. They're sturdy little dudes.
They are. They can take it. But I would say alcohol wipe, or I feel like glass cleaner is pretty safe for a camera because
Would it
it's glass.
be the lighting in the room? Like,
Oh yeah, that's true. I forgot about that. So yeah, if you're cutting in the evening, get a good lamp above your Cricut or good overhead light going, because the camera that's reading the registration marks is just a camera. It doesn't have an internal light. So if it can't see it, I can't see it. That was good call there, Justy. I forgot about that one.
I think a few years ago in the groups when this was like a big problem when print and cut kind of first came out, there were people that were like, I just go over mine with permanent marker. I don't know if that made them darker, that made them easier to read for the computer, but a lot of people swore by it. They would just color right over theirs.
I've never had to do that. I feel like if you do these other two things, you're going to be okay probably.
I wonder if they weren't using like glossier sheets, so the permanent marker is just matte, so it doesn't gloss right up it.
That makes sense. Yeah, that makes sense.
Creates contrast. Okay, so Daniel says, my sublimation prints seem to come out too dark, and I'm worried about using the wrong settings. How do I make sure I'm getting the right color balance and that my print matches my design exactly?
Oh gosh, this is not where I'm good at this. I would say definitely look at what printer settings on your printer are recommended for sublimation. And that's just a quick Google. And that is totally dependent on your printer, but you'll do whenever you're printing it, whatever software you're using, just make sure you do like print. What do you click? Print with printer dialog, or whatever that button says. It says like use printer dialog or use. Make sure you click on that, and then make sure under like your color settings, you're selecting whatever is recommended for your printer with sublimation. So Google that first, and then make sure you're doing that every time. That would be number one. And then number two would be make sure you're using a good quality ink that is designed for sublimation with your printer. If you have a Sawgrass, you're using Sawgrass ink because did you know they don't let you use another kind of ink? We've talked about this. Oh, it drives me nuts. But anyway, with Sawgrass printers, you can't use anything but Sawgrass ink anymore. But make sure you're using a good quality ink, and then make sure you're using good quality paper too. Make sure you're using good sublimation paper, because otherwise it can be like kind of oversaturated no matter what you're doing. And then that will be really frustrating. So I would just read the reviews on whatever paper you're using also. That's really all I can think of though. Can you think of anything else, Justy, on that one?
I don't know. I'm not a big sublimation girl. No one will buy me a sublimation machine. If my husband's listening, that was for you.
That was, or was that from Design Bundles? Do we need to have a combo with management?
I asked for one for Christmas and he forgot. And like the day before Christmas, I was like, you did get me that big thing because the package looks small. And he was like, yeah, totally. I don't remember what you're talking about. I'm like,
okay. This is why I make a note on my phone and I just share it with him. And I'm like, hi, I made a list. So, check it twice.
I do typically send him a link. I think it was just because I asked for it way early, and you have to tell him,
you were too ahead of the game
for Christmas. Speaking of notes on your phone, someone did ask, how do you find out all of these settings? Where do you store all these settings? How do you remember all these settings?
In a note on your phone. That's literally what I do. Is I have a note that's like ideal heat settings, ideal cut settings. And I just like, as I discover the setting that I like the best, I just notate it somewhere. If you use Cricut though, they actually do have a heat guide that's really good. And I would really recommend it because it's free and it's on the interwebs. So you go to like Cricut Heat Guide, and then it'll ask you what you're putting it on and what like you're using or whatever, and it will tell you the heat settings for it. But they're just going to vary a little bit depending on what kinds of materials you're using. So I would say use that as a jumping off point. And then as you discover what you like the best and what works the best with your heat press and with your stuff, just make a little note on your phone.
Yeah. I do find guides online a lot. Like I'll scroll images on Google, and sometimes there's someone who's just made like a pretty one or a printable so that you can save it to your phone. It's just
I made one.
nicer to look at. Did you?
I did.
Is
When
it
I
on
used
yours?
to have an Etsy shop, it was on there, but I shut down my Etsy shop.
Well, you have a design bundles. Just go throw it on there.
That's true. I'll put it on my design bundles. I already have it, so I might as well.
Yeah. If you're a Plus member, you can
Stay
get it. All you
tuned.
have to do is find Laura's shop that I definitely remember what we named it.
I think we called it It's Laura Lambert.
Oh, okay. Well, that's
Let me go look. Let's just take a little brief hiatus and look really quick.
we're running out of questions, so that's totally fine with me.
We got a lot of good ones. How do I go to? Oh, yeah. Okay. Designer panel. It's Laura Lambert.
Cool.
I have no products. I need to put them in there.
I thought we were doing that over Christmas break, ma'am.
We were supposed to.
You're grounded. Go to your
No, I have a bunch. I just need to put them on there. So I'm going to make that a task over the next week or two. I'm going to get that done.
get some
Mark my
designs.
words, podcast listeners. If you visit my page next Friday and it's not up, you can feel free to hound me.
Well, some exclusive info. In the next quarter, you'll have like a really cool place that you can just pull up people's stuff and play with it. And that's all I can really say.
It's going to be so cool.
A neat addition to a piece of software.
Yeah. Okay. Next.
All right, let's do the next question, which is Sophie. And she says, I want to make custom wall decals with my Cricut, but I'm not sure what type of vinyl to use. Can I use a regular adhesive vinyl, or do I need a special kind for walls I rent? So I'm really worried about the paint.
Yeah. Just use regular temporary adhesive vinyl. So I did a huge wall mural in my daughter's room. So fun. And I used StarCraft SD, which is their temporary. Oracal has 431.
I think it's just called temporary vinyl, maybe. Yeah, 431.
Yeah, I think it's 451 is permanent and 431 is temporary. I might have made that up. I don't know. Oracal has a really good temporary one too, but any kind of temporary adhesive vinyl should be great. Read the reviews. I can't attest to the Oracal one, but usually they're great. But the StarCraft SD is what I used, and it was perfect.
631. It's Oracle
631.
631.
I'm surprised I was even had the right idea.
I totally forgot they used numbers. I always just Google like temporary or permanent.
Yeah, theirs is all number based, and I used to know them all, but alas.
You've deleted things in that brain of yours.
I have, yeah.
Okay, so I am out of questions, I believe. I might have jumped around, but I'm not seeing any that I haven't asked. So do you want to give your, I guess, first project? What would you do as your first project if you were a beginner? I know you're kind of already exploring this, but it doesn't have to be with Cricut. It could be like, what do you think a first project with your laser machine could be?
With my Cricut, I would say what you said earlier and what we're doing in the beginner series on YouTube. I think a great first project is just a simple vinyl decal, because you get to practice cutting multiple mats, you get to practice layering, you get to have something that you can use like right away. And it's also a really inexpensive first project because a lot of people already have like adhesive vinyl. So I would say that would be my first project for Cricut. For laser, I would say get something made of wood and engrave it first. Like a good wood engrave, like get a cutting board and engrave it. Get a wooden kitchen spoon or a rolling pin. That might be kind of hard because it's curved, but like a kitchen object, and just engrave it. I think that's like the easiest place to start with your laser. But my overall advice to beginners is just try something. Like I think so many people, we hear it all the time, and Justy will second this, I know. My Cricut's still in the box. My Cricut's just in a closet and I'm too scared to open it. And we get it because it is overwhelming. I mean, that's like the question we started with today is like, it's overwhelming. There's so much you can learn. And that is 100% true, but you're never going to get there unless you just like take the first bite. You know, you got to take the first bite out of the elephant. So it's like, just start. Know that you might screw it up. It may become a doorstop. You may hate it. You may throw it away. But that's part of the process is like be okay with failure, be okay with not knowing what you're doing, be okay with kind of like blindly following the steps the first couple times and just have fun with it because ultimately if you wanted it to be perfect, you would have bought it. That's my best advice.
I think that if you're going to make your first project, you should make for yourself. I think everybody wants to jump into like make something for my grandbaby. But what you don't realize is if you do get good at it, if that first project turns out great and that next project turns out great and you turn out to just be like a natural crafty person, no one's going to ever let you have time to make anything for yourself again.
You're going to be very busy.
So make your wish list first and then fulfill that wish list. And also you don't have to worry about critiques because I feel like when I'm making something for someone else, I'm always kind of worried, like, are they going to see that little bit of glue that's right there? You know, I'm making Christmas presents and I did not think it through on like the edges of something. So I had to kind of like go with an X-Acto knife and like shave off the edges of something. Like in my head, they were going to pick it up and be like, this looks shoddy. Every single person was like, these are gorgeous. And I love it.
And you're like, great.
Yeah, you don't see the mistakes. So that's fine with me. But
that's so funny.
I would definitely start with a project for yourself. Like just make your wish list while you're waiting for it to ship. Or, you know, if it's already here, make your wish list of things that you would want for yourself with a Cricut or a laser or anything. And then just start from there. I would say get HTV first because I feel like everybody starts with vinyl and vinyl's fun. But it's almost like we're scared of the HTV part. So then there's a lot of people that won't go past vinyl because the vinyl's a pain and it's harder to weed and there's stuff with it that's a little icky. You know, if you start with the HTV and you make a shirt, like that's something that you get to wear outside and you can run around and be like, look what I made. So I always kind of, you know, make yourself a decal at first just to make sure you understand how things cut and like what the settings are, and then make yourself like a t-shirt. Make a bigger project that's simple in design.
Yeah. And that's what we're doing. That is the second project in our beginner series, which is fun. But if you have a heat press, go for it. Like do an HTV project. I think you kind of touched on this, but I do think in a lot of ways, HTV is easier to use. Like it's easier to weed. It's not sticky like on its own. So you don't have to worry about like, you know, it sticking to you while you're trying to weed it. And it's a little more forgiving too, because it's like stretchy. So yeah, good thought.
And you notice we're talking a lot about vinyl as your first project. None of us are recommending cardstock as your first project.
I would recommend cardstock as like your 100th project. Not really.
I'm a paper crafter. I love the paper.
I have a personal vendetta against paper projects, so don't ask me. But I'm going to get a new blade via Justy's recommendation, and we're going to see if I can turn myself into a paper crafter.
I think it's just one of those things. Once you have the settings down, it's really fun. I like love to make a card. I got a Cricut so that I could paper craft and then immediately realized like I was going to have to figure out like cardstock, and I thought I could just use like construction paper, and that's not going to work.
I need to get better cardstock. I do think that's one of my problems. But I mean, I made that out of paper. It's like a little lotus tea light.
Something else out of paper in a couple days.
I am making something else out of paper in a couple days. Lord willing. What?
I think that the craft along will have already aired probably by the time we get this out.
Yeah.
But if you don't already know, Laura is taking a leave and she's doing a paper project, and she's going to do it with everybody. So we have a Facebook group, and we've kind of talked about what's going to be the file, and you can download it for free and get it all cut out, and then you get to assemble it with Laura on live. So it's something new that we're trying. So tune in for that.
Yeah, it's going to be super fun and probably a little chaotic. But if it's already aired and you've missed it and you want us to do it again, let us know in the comments. We'll try to do it more.
I think there's already a February one being planned.
Nice. Okay. So it's happening.
I'm very excited.
Maybe not a paper one next time.
I don't know what she's picking. I'll have to bug her and be like, maybe we try vinyl this next one.
Vinyl, HTV. We should do stickers. Or we could do, oh gosh, there's just so many options.
You notice it's just you trying to not be paper. So
Infusable
many options
ink.
that aren't paper.
We could do invisible ink. We could do anything but paper.
I still want a letter with infusible ink and like put it on something. It's like on my
Yeah.
to-do list and I haven't done it yet.
It's fun. It's fun.
Okay. Do you have any other like beginner-friendly questions? We're kind of short on time, but there's only two of us today.
I don't think so. I mean, I feel like we covered a multitude. I think if you're a beginner and you've made it through to the end, congrats, you've taken your first big step. If you have lingering questions or this episode has made you think of even more questions, put them in the comments below because we could do like a part 2 to this.
Definitely.
And we could do like, you had more questions. Here they are. So let us know. But if you're a beginner, we will say it again and we truly mean it. Just start. Just start. You'll learn much faster than you think. And we're excited for you.
Goal for the end of January. Take the Cricut out of the box. I don't care if you just set it on your table to look cute.
Just get it out.
You can decorate it. So, set it on your table and you'll look at it and be like, I could put some vinyl on.
I could decorate it. I think that might have been my first project, actually. Putting a sticker on my Cricut.
And then I made a wine glass, which I don't recommend for your first project because there's so much curve in the wine glass.
Oh, yeah, that's tough.
My little owl was like funny looking.
Yeah.
He looked like he was on a tree that wasn't there anymore.
Yeah, I have had a few like that didn't quite pan out.
Oh, well. Okay, well, Laura's going to give us a recap.
Okay, I'm so good at these. So we've talked about a lot of things. Oh my goodness. We talked about all the different beginner tips. We talked about what's a good first project. We've talked about sublimation. We've talked about registration marks and infusible ink and laser projects. We've talked about so much. If anything, I hope this video helps you see that it is possible to learn this kind of stuff. It might seem complicated, but if you just take it one step at a time, you can totally do this. We're cheering you on every step of the way. Let us know if you have any more comments about this topic, but you've got this. Take your Cricut out of the box. Yes, you're a beginner right now, but if you just start crafting and failing and succeeding some, a little more each and every time, you'll be a pro before you know it. I firmly believe that.
Hear, hear. And Laura loves to fail, so.
I love to fail. I do it all the time. I do it all the time with my Cricut. If you're looking for a place to watch YouTube videos that will teach you new stuff, but in a very real and chaotic way, you should definitely be following us on or subscribe to us on YouTube because that is literally what we do.
We figure it out eventually.
We do. We figure it out, but we do not shy away from the fact that mistakes happen, even to those of us who have had our Cricuts for a very long time.
All right. Well,
all right.
Thank you for joining us with the Craftstache, and we will see you next time.
Adios. Godspeed, crafters.
Okay, I'm going to push stop. Is that going to kick us out?